Bills Mafia, welcome into the no dancing from John today. Welcome into the Tuesday edition of First and Five. As always, I'm joined by John 𝐬𝐽𝐾. We are going to break down the Bills' absolute thrashing of the New York Jets, and we're going to preview the Dolphins. Kind of a weird sandwich show today, with lots of layers because the Bills do play Thursday night. So, first impressions, we'll start there real quick. Just first impressions of the Bills' performance against the Jets on Sunday. What did you see? What did you like?
I liked a lot because they won by a lot. It was just a butt kicking from the beginning. Yeah. It's what I wanted going into the game. I didn't want it to be close. I wanted the better team to clearly look like the better team. Just win handily, take care of business, especially against a division opponent, and get out of there. And that's exactly what happened. They didn't have to show anything creative or crazy or dig deep into the playbook or anything like that. Just show up and win. And they did. So I think overall 30,000 foot view of it is just that comfortable victory as it should have been. And that makes me happy that it wasn't a threat. It wasn't close. And that makes me happy.
What was your level of concern when you saw Josh running off the field? I mean, it happened quick. He was down and then he was up, running, ripping his helmet off. What was your level of concern right there?
Very high, just because the idea of not having Josh Allen scares the living hell out of me. And Josh is so tough and doesn't come out of the game like hardly ever. So him coming off to the side, I was like, okay, did he like break his nose, fracture an orbital socket? Like what just happened to his face? So yeah, it was terrifying. I don't like the idea of Josh being out, and luckily he went back out there and he's a cyborg. And now the jokes are that he looks like the third Bosa brother in the NFL because his nose is all swollen and flatter than it was previously. So it's just glad that it's not anything long-term. It's not going to impact him going forward much, although I think there is going to be a bit of dealing with it. So yeah.
Is it weird that I thought that he was playing a little erratic in the first half, and then after that, it seemed like he played a little bit better because they didn't have to pass the ball a ton in the second half, but I felt like he played a little bit better coming out of the second half. I don't know if that was just adrenaline was pumping or what, because we know Josh, he likes to get hit. He'll say that he likes to start the game with a QB run or a designed, QB sneak or something just to get, bring down, calm his nerves and bring him down. So again, like I said at the top of the show, we're going to talk about the Bills' performance against the Jets, mainly defensively, because like John said, they didn't show too much offensively. It was pretty much cut and paste stuff that we know the Bills can do. I do like the fact that Elijah Moore did get involved. I like the fact that he scored a touchdown, had that nice reception. I thought that was kind of a cool homecoming for him. But overall, John, how did you feel about the Bills' performance? Because before we were coming on air, I was talking about you had to think that there was some ass whoopings handed up from Sean McDermott in the film room and in practice and in the team meetings this week. So how do you feel like the Bills responded, knowing that Ed Oliver wasn't playing, knowing that Taron Johnson wasn't playing? They were half a game without Matt Milano. So what was your thoughts there overall? And then I'll break down some numbers here. Overall, what was your thoughts on the Bills defense?
I thought it was a lot stronger, obviously, than it was in week one. And it helps when you're going against Justin Fields and the Jets as opposed to the Ravens, who are one of the best teams in the NFL. For sure, competition level matters. But the defense looked like they were playing with a lot more like gap integrity. They were tighter on their responsibilities. They just looked sharper than they did in week one. And part of that is just the fact that it's not week one anymore. Week one's always weird. It's your first time in game action of the season, and it was a really hard opponent and all that. But like you said, I definitely think that there was an emphasis on it in practice this week. And I think that they raised their level of play closer to the expectation that Sean McDermott has for this team. I thought a lot of the young guys played really well along the defensive line. It was good to see TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, even Zion Logue make an impact. Was really good to see them get in and look serviceable and, get some pressures and be able to hold their own in the run game. I think it was all in all, a really, really great performance by the defense, not giving up. I mean, we can dig into the stats and I'm sure that we will, but not giving up a touchdown until under 4 minutes left in the game. It was, they basically pitched a shutout. It was a great outing from the defense. I loved it.
Yeah, if you look into the stats, if you look at the total yards, the Jets had 154 total yards, and a lot of that came when Tyrod was in garbage time. A lot of the passing stats that they gave up, I think Tyrod had around 40 yards rushing. Like a lot of that stuff was given up when the starters were out. So a lot of emphasis, I think, from Bills fans collectively about the defense was get off the field on third down. And the Jets were 0 for 11 on third down. Now they were 3 for 3 on fourth down, but a lot of that was going for it later in the game when there was nothing to lose. But getting off the field on third down was huge. I mean, 83 yards passing allowed. That's huge. We talked about Breece Hall. He had 10 carries for 29 yards. So a lot of the stuff that we emphasized the Bills were able to do. And then obviously everyone wants to talk about Joey Bosa. He's got,
oh yeah,
he now has, and I just put a little bit of film out on X. You know, I broke down 7 or 8 plays where you can tell he was just impactful. He was disruptive. He was forcing Fields to be uncomfortable. He forced a couple errant throws, obviously the 2 forced fumbles. So talk to me a little bit about the Bills, the more of the specifics on what you saw, you know, besides from Joey Bosa, because I was hoping that this would be a Greg Rousseau coming out, kind of like an 𝐤𝐵𝐵𝐿 type game where everybody was contributing. But it seemed like when Bosa was in there, it was where they were getting the meat and potatoes of the pass rush. I think he had 7 pressures on 15 pass rush snaps, a ridiculous amount. So talk to me about how you feel overall. You kind of touched on, you know, it was nice seeing some of the young guys get in there. How'd you feel about the secondary? I feel like Cole Bishop played a little bit better. Talk to me overall about the 3 levels and how you felt about how they performed on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Bosa was playing out of his mind. Like you said, he had 7 pressures, a sack, a quarterback hit, 2 forced fumbles. And he just looks like he's juiced. I mean, he just looks like he's having the time of his life playing in Buffalo. They're turning him loose. I mean, as of right now, he looks like he could have been the steal of the offseason if he continues to perform at this level and make the impact that he's making. Eventually, other teams are going to have to start accounting for him a little bit more, and that's going to put even more of a opportunity in front of guys like Ed Oliver when he's back and Greg Rousseau on the other side and the young guys when they rotate in. So if Bosa keeps turning it loose and being a, you know, monster off the edge that's making quarterbacks uncomfortable, that's just great, because then opposing offensive coordinators are going to have to scheme for that. So I love it. I would have loved to see a little bit more out of, you know, some of the other guys in terms of pressures, but 𝐤𝐵𝐵𝐿 had 4 pressures registered in the game too. So he was making his impact felt. Going to the secondary, I thought that Trey White looked really good as CB2. I think it was a really positive showing to get him out there. I don't know that I necessarily want that to be the season-long answer at cornerback 2. We'll see. I think it's good, though, because if he's serviceable, you don't have to rush Max Hairston back when he's healthy. You can allow Max to kind of work back in, make sure that he's right, ramp up for a few weeks before playing, you know, a ton of meaningful snaps. So it's good that he didn't look like toast out there, because if he did, it puts you in a really uncomfortable spot. Granted, their wide receiver core is basically just Garrett Wilson and nothing else. So we'll see what that looks like going forward. Obviously a big task ahead with the wide receivers this weekend. But I thought that the corners looked good. Linebacker play, very concerned now about Matt Milano's injury. I don't understand the vagueness with which they're reporting on it. It's like, oh, he could practice tomorrow, or it could be a long-term injury. Well,
yeah, like what is it?
What? Because those are 2 very different things. So I don't like that. Honestly, I think I've already mentioned it before, but I think that linebacker is going to be a position in next year's NFL draft that's a top priority. I think that Milano getting long in the tooth, can't stay healthy. I think that that's for future Bills fans' thoughts in the offseason after this season is at hand. Linebacker is going to be something that I think needs to be addressed. But all in all, I love our linebacker core. I love our group. I love when Dorian's able to rotate in. I think he's a great backup linebacker to have. And I thought Cole Bishop looked better at safety. I thought that he made his impact felt. I thought he just looked a little bit tougher. Like he just had his nose in the game a little bit more. I think he led the team in tackles, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah, that's great to see from him that he's contributing against the run. Contributed in pass rush too. He came in on a blitz and a sack. Yeah, that worked out really well. So that was good to see, because I think utilizing his athleticism and his instincts on the fly like that are kind of where his strengths are. Like that's when he's at his best. So being able to maximize that was a really good showing. All in all, yeah, the defense smoked the Jets. The Jets didn't look like they ever had anything going in that game.
Yeah, and I will preface what what I'm about to say about the secondary by saying that it was the Jets, but there was this high. The Jets scored 32 points on the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was this high that the Jets, we all thought Justin Fields, maybe this is the right spot for him and all this stuff. But to me, and I don't know how you feel, but to me, the secondary guys look like they were flying to the ball. They look like it was a lot of fundamental stuff that was missed in week one. And I bring up the play with Christian Benford on that huge when the Jets tried to do that flea flicker, and he had that huge play in the backfield. It was, I believe it was like a 10-yard loss. And that was just fundamentals, because I think for a long time, a lot of Bills fans have been talking about tackling, just fundamentally, like, why can't we tackle in the open field? And I saw, watching film back of the Bills defense, I saw a lot of stuff when the ball was there. There was 1, 2, or 3 guys that were there that were preventing yards after catch, that were pushing guys out of bounds. It feels like there was more of a sense. I don't want to say there was a sense of urgency, but it just felt like that was something that was missed, obviously, in week one. So it was really nice to see all that, especially with Taron Johnson not being out there. You know, Cam Lewis played and he got dinged up a little bit. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come, because like you said, and we'll get into it when we talk about the Dolphins, they have wide receivers. They have an offense that can score points. So, you know, we'll kind of see what happens there. But let's talk about James Cook for a minute, because I think both you and me last week, when we were previewing this game, we were talking about how the run game didn't seem to get off the ground against the Ravens. And what the Bills do really well is run the ball. And obviously that's a huge contributing factor. That is James Cook getting going. And so how did you feel about the afternoon that he had? And is that kind of like a launching point for where he could be going forward? Because we all know who James Cook is. We all know that, you know, he scores on, I believe, 7.5% of his touches and things like that. So talk to me about what you liked from the Bills run game, and then we could kind of talk about the offensive line and pass pro and run pro. But let's talk about James Cook first.
I mean, what's there to say? I mean, James Cook had 21 carries, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6.3 yards a tote, a long of 44. That was ridiculous and made people miss and cutting on a dime. And he just looks like one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's just electric with the ball in his hands. He's a threat to turn anything into a huge chunk play, but is also capable of doing the dirty work on, you know, short distances as well when needed. I will say, this is now 2 weeks in a row that I'm kind of disappointed in Ray Davis's performance. I thought that he would have had an opportunity to maybe turn in a little bit more in this one, but he only averaged 2.7 yards a carry. So for me, that's not great. I need Ray to be more of a threat when he's in the game, to be able to churn out, you know, 4, 5, 6 yards instead of it being put you in second and long. So we'll see for Ray. I hope that he gets it going a little bit more. But in terms of James Cook, I think what's great about James Cook is that he can factor into this offense no matter how the offense is going. If you want to be a ground and pound and give him 20 plus carries like he did in this one, he can do it, and they'll do it incredibly well. If the ground game isn't working and you feel like getting him more involved in the passing game, he can do it, and he can do it incredibly well. He's, I think, your best offense, or your best weapon on offense. Outside of Josh, he is the best weapon that you have in terms of his ability to turn anything into a massive opportunity and turn anything into a touchdown. So James Cook is just a Swiss Army knife on this offense, and he is majorly important. And when he's rolling like he is, it's great. It takes so much pressure off of Josh. Josh didn't really have to do much in this game, just manage it. He did have to avoid some pressure, which we will get to. He had the long run, which was great, but just a comfortable lead and easy day at the office for Josh. You didn't even need him to throw a touchdown pass. Like it just cruised all the way through. And that's because this ground game can be one of the best ground games in the NFL.
I'm going to name some names here, and then I'm going to ask you what they have in common. Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams, and Josh Allen.
Let's see, something to do with rushing touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them.
Yep, you're close. You're getting there.
The only people in the NFL to have 12 plus rushing touchdowns last year. I don't know. What's the stat that we're going for?
So since the start of 2024.
Okay.
James Cook has more touchdowns than all of those guys.
Hell yeah.
Rushing touchdowns. So to me, everybody back over the summer when we were talking about the holdout and the contract and the social media stuff and all this stuff, I tweeted out on Sunday, I said, he's worth every penny.
Yep.
After that run, and I saw that jump cut when it looked like, I don't know, I thought he was going to go down. Like right there was three Jets players right there. And I'm like, he's got nowhere to go. And then all of a sudden, oh, just bounce outside. I'm gone. So, and I do like what you said about the fact that the goal line situations, they gave him the ball instead of just relying on Josh to just basically fall forward and get a tush push or a buffalo shovel or whatever we're calling it. So yeah, I was really impressed that, that's something that was missing. I don't think a lot of people were concerned. I feel like the Bills went into a different mode against the Ravens and they just went away from it. So yeah, the stats look terrible from last Sunday's game. So it's nice to see. And I hope that that's going to be a sign of things to come. And James Cook does typically play well against the Dolphins. So we'll see what happens there. All right, let's talk about the offensive line. What did you see that you liked? Is there anything you saw that you didn't like, whether it's pass protection, run protection? What's your thoughts compared to last week against the Ravens?
It's weird. We kind of talked about this before we went on the air. It's almost like their strengths flip-flopped. In week 1, I felt like their pass protection was great and their run game couldn't get going. In this one, their ground game looked really dominant and opened a lot of opportunities for James. But they allowed a little bit more pressure than I would have liked to see. Spencer Brown, I think in particular, I think they had 3 pressures or 4. I can't remember exactly, but 3, not his best performance, like not horrible. You know what I mean? It's not like anyone had a horrible day. And it helps when Josh Allen is able to avoid and create. And I think that saves the stats from looking as bad as they do, is because you have a quarterback that can kind of bail out offensive linemen. But I thought that it didn't look as dominant up front in pass protection as I would have liked to see it. So I think that in this game, I think that was part of the reason why you saw them not really trying to have Josh do a lot. I think they got a feel early that, hey, the ground game's working. Pass protection looks a little bit spotty. And you're playing with a lead. So let's just be conservative in the passing attack. Let's, pound James Cook on the ground and get out of here. So I hope that the pass protection kind of cleans it up a little bit this week going forward. The Jets have a tough defensive front. Like, it is a hard one to play against. It's two games in a row now between Baltimore and the Jets that are really, really tough tasks up front. So I'm hoping that in the coming weeks, some of the competition maybe doesn't look quite as tough for the front 5, 6, really, when you consider Anderson. And you see them turn in a little bit cleaner performances and keep Josh back there just comfortable, able to pick apart a defense. That's what I would love to see, especially Thursday. Short week against a Miami defense that has just been god-awful through 2 weeks. Just like this game against the Jets in the sense, just be comfortable. Like, don't make this one anything where there's any sort of threat. This is a one where Josh should be able to stand back there and pick apart a defense, go nuts, put up 45 points. Let's have a party at home. Let's just, turn in a good game.
Side note, do you think the Jets are going to blitz Sauce Gardner at any point in the near future again after what Josh Allen did? Turns
unlikely. I would not say that it's likely to happen.
If you watch the all-22 version from the end zone and you see Sauce coming off the edge, Josh was already spinning before he got like within arm's reach. He was like, all right, this is enough. Like, I've had enough. So I thought that was funny. But I'm with you on the pass protection. I feel like this, I don't want to say it's a get right game against the Dolphins. I hate saying that because everybody throws out the statistics about how Josh performs against the Dolphins, how the Bills have performed against the Dolphins. It's the NFL. It's week to week. Things happen. Weird stuff happens. But I do feel like if this is a game to have Joe Brady call things I don't want to say bully ball, but Josh Allen, like you said, should be able to do anything he wants with that secondary. The secondary play of the Dolphins is bad. 2 weeks in a row now, they've gotten carved up pretty good. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Bills rely heavily on the run, if they want to sprinkle in some pass. Obviously, we know Josh is dealing with the fractured bone in his nose or whatever they've clarified it as being, and he's going to wear a visor. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're probably going to want to try to protect him a little bit, but he's Josh Allen. Like, I don't think Josh Allen is the guy that wants to be protected. He's going to say, I'm good, and I'm going to go out there. And knowing Josh Allen, he'll go out there and he'll be AFC, play offensive player of the week against the Dolphins with a visor on and all that stuff. And your tweet that you put out, 500 passing yards and 7 touchdowns, which I thought was funny. So
it'd be hilarious. I just want to kind of touch on some of the Miami defensive stats kind of ranks through 2 weeks. Right now, the Chicago Bears are the worst defense in the NFL in terms of stats, in terms of yards, in terms of points allowed, in terms of a lot of things. Miami is second worst in a lot of them. Points per game, 33.0, 31st. Opponent yards per game, 375.5. That's 26th. Points per play, 0.528. That's 30th. Third down conversion, 51.85%, 31st. Rush play percentage. Teams are running the ball against Miami 32nd, 55.2%. So dead last. Like, people are running it against them the most. What else? Let's see. Opponent completion percentage, 78.85, dead last. 78.85% completion percentage allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So listen, you don't ever want to be, and opponent turnover margin ranks 31st at +2 because Tua turned the ball over. You don't ever want to say that any game is like an easy matchup, like you said. It's just kind of bad juju and stuff like that. But listen, on paper, Miami has a death rattle right now. Okay, they're 0-2. You've got people flying planes over their stadium with Fire Greer signs hanging out the back of the planes. It looks horrible. If you pressure Tua, if you get him off his first read, he makes horrible decisions with the ball, and he's throwing just ugly interceptions in the middle of the field, like to the middle linebacker's face, like right dead center of the linebacker. This is a game where, just like the Jets game, the Bills have an opportunity to just put a stamp on their division and on their tone as being one of the best teams in the NFL. You should not look like it's competitive against Miami. This is a home game in prime time for Josh Allen, where he is lights out when that is the situation. This is a game where you should come out and, like the party against Miami last year, where they picked off Tua, I think twice in the first half or whatever it was, even though that one was down in Miami and it just got out of hand early. It should be like that. I want Bills fans to be partying in the stands with a pick 6 from Benford on a pass attempt to Tyreek Hill, 7 yards down the field, middle of the first quarter. Let's just call my shot. I just want it to happen, and it should happen, because Miami looks god-awful. This is a team that is just out of sorts. They don't know what to do on offense. They are still explosive. So, don't get it wrong. There are things to be nervous about anytime you go up against Miami, because they have so much speed, and they can hit on one play that turns into a touchdown. Our secondary has been prone to big plays, especially the safeties. They don't have a lot of speed. So if Tyreek does get loose, he's always a threat to go for a 70-yard touchdown. Now, my stance on it is they might get 1 or 2 of those plays. But when you look at the whole scope of the game, maybe they get 1 or 2 cheap touchdowns like that. You should still be able to score 5 against Miami. Right. So if it's 35-14, great. Sign me up. Let's go. This is a game where you should look like one of the best teams in the NFL, and you should have Miami questioning their future decisions at 0-3 with an 0-2 record against the AFC East.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. I don't know why, if it's PTSD or what, about the Bills playing down to their competition. I feel like that's kind of gone away in the past couple years. Like last year against New England, they were kind of letting New England hang around in the first game, obviously the second game because the starters were out. But there's always those games. And I never overlook opponents, obviously. I'm always like, well, something weird could happen that isn't scripted for the Bills. You know what I mean? Like the scheme's not working, or there's a drop pass that leads to an interception, or there's an injury early in the game, or just something weird. So hopefully, like you said, the Bills are 12-point favorites, and that's a perfect segue where we can lead right into previewing this game. The Bills are 12-point favorites. They were 12.5, but John and myself, we were looking right before we came live. That's Vegas saying the Bills should just mollywop the Dolphins this week. It should not.
Oh, I'm so proud of you for using mollywop. It's one of my favorite phrases. That's a good
pull. Vegas knows. I mean, they're right a lot more than they're wrong. Now, I don't see a world where Miami comes into Buffalo and plays mistake-free football because, like you said, the Bills have not lost the turnover battle. I believe it's 24 games. It's an NFL record. So I
Yeah.
don't believe that this game is the game where that's going to happen. We've seen Tua have some just horrible turnovers in the first 2 games. The Bills defense, I feel like, can build on something that they started against the Jets and kind of continue that. And again, Taron Johnson will give a little injury update. I was watching some stuff on Twitter before we came on, and Taron Johnson was interviewed by one of the Bills media guys, and he said he's good to go.
Yep.
So if this is a game where you want to make sure Ed Oliver's okay and he doesn't have to play, and you don't want to rush Matt Milano back and things like that, it's fine. Put guys out there that were successful last week and give them more reps. So what's your overall thoughts on the Bills? And you kind of touched on the Bills offense versus the Dolphins defense, but we can get right into like, what are the keys to a Bills victory and kind of maybe more of a structured version of how the Bills can beat the Dolphins. What's your thoughts offensively? And then we can kind of jump into defense.
Offensively, pound the ball. I want you to be able to run the ball well early in the game, because if you run the ball well, it opens up everything else, especially in this Buffalo scheme. Like we saw it in the Baltimore game. When you can't run it well, Josh has to be the hero. And he's capable of doing that, which is great. But you don't want him to have to be. You want to be able to run the ball at 55% of the plays. You want Jimbo to snap off a few big ones. You want it to be a balanced attack. And anytime you have an explosive and dynamic offense like Miami does, even though they're turnover prone and even though they, whatever, they're 0-2, whatever, you want them on the sidelines. So you want to be able to run the ball and put up points early. So for me, it starts on the ground, just like it did against the Jets. It starts on the ground early, run the ball well, march down and get a first drive touchdown. I think I was actually driving back from an errand, so I didn't see the very beginning of this last Bills game. Bills scored on the first drive, right? James Cook got a touchdown.
Yep.
So 2 weeks in a row, they got a touchdown on the first drive of the game.
Right.
Keep that going. Get the early lead, good momentum going. The first drive scripted, run heavy approach, make it happen. And open up the play action. So on offense, I like that. I like the run game. I like their secondary is garbage though too. So if you can get them creeping down against the run because the run's working so well, the opportunities for play action pop like deep shots from Josh are absolutely there in this game too. So I would love them to just keep Miami guessing, be able to do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Whether it's a run play, a short, quick pass, a play action that goes for a big chunk play. I want Miami like completely reeling defensively. And I think that the opportunity is there to be able to do that. So offensively, that's the way that I lean. I think it just starts with running the ball early.
Yeah, I think so. My keys of the game against the Jets were score early, which they did, and get a turnover early, because that turnover against the Ravens, obviously it was very useful, but it came later in the game and they had to wait for it. So again, my key on offense is just bully the Dolphins.
Yeah.
I feel like you have the offensive line that can bully the Dolphins. That secondary, like you said, if you look at them on paper, a lot of people don't know who plays corner and safety for the Miami Dolphins. It is what it is. They traded away some pieces in the offseason, and they're just going to take their lumps. I feel like Miami doesn't know what they're doing, if they're in midlife crisis mode, if they're in mid rebuild, I don't know if they know what they're doing, but Mike McDaniel is obviously on the hot seat.
Oh yeah.
And the press conference that he just had, I was trying to translate it into English, and I don't even know what he was talking about. So again, I think if you look at that game last year in Miami on Thursday Night Football, that was a James Cook game. And I feel like this could kind of mimic that type of game where Josh maybe throws for $130, $140, doesn't have to do much, and just let James Cook do his thing. And hopefully that, it was a nice jumping off point against the Jets. So, all right, let's flip over to defense. So obviously, without saying Joey Bosa, because obviously I feel like if we get this Joey Bosa for 17 games, look out. Like this is what we wanted from Von Miller, right? So I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to preface it by saying Joey Bosa's back and he's amazing. It's nice to see his breakout the last 2 games. So defensively, what do you think the Bills need to do to stop Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill? And they have a really good run game when they actually use it properly, when Mike McDaniel uses it properly. They have 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜 and all that. So what's your thoughts there for the Bills defensively?
I think that having Taron Johnson back is huge. He plays Miami incredibly well. Like he's so important, I think, in this scheme when going against the Dolphins' speed, just because of his understanding, like his processing speed, his ability to know what's happening in front of him. Schematically, the play against Tua is to try and take away his first read. Because if you get him off his first read, it turns into panic. And then your pass rushers are winning their matchups, and then Tua doesn't know what to do with the ball and he throws a bad interception. Like, it's take away the first read. So playing tight, like play tight coverage against these wide receivers, which is scary because of their speed. Because if it is a double move situation or something along those lines, you open yourself up to the big chunk play. But like I said, I'll live with a couple of those plays in the game. Like if it happens a couple times, that's okay. In my mind, the risk reward is completely worth it. If they get a couple of those big plays, yeah, exactly. Tua will throw to a couple blue jerseys this week. I think that he will too. If you take away a majority of the first read opportunities, then the pass rush will get there. Tua is prone to make mistakes and throw interceptions. And I just like rotating in a bunch of guys and give a lot of guys opportunities to go get after the pass rusher this week. I want to keep the defensive line fresh. This isn't one where you're worried about necessarily getting bullied on the defensive line. So I'm not worried about, Daquan Jones necessarily having to play a super high snap count, even though he looked a lot better against the Jets than he did.
He did.
So that was really good to see. But this is one where I like TJ Sanders. I like Deion Walker. I like the guys that are more athletic and kind of slashy type. They have their place, in terms of what Brandon Beane likes to build this defensive line for. These are the games where you build them for because of their speed. So I like turning it loose in that sense in terms of the pass rush. I'm fine with bringing pressure a lot on Tua because if you make him uncomfortable, like I said, he makes bad choices. So bring the corner blitzes, that the blitz, get Cole Bishop down into the box on some stunts and stuff like that. That's really fun. I like that idea. Taron Johnson, I feel like can get a sack in this game. Like, I feel like that's something that I could see happening. I just think there's all kinds of ways that you can make Tua uncomfortable, and that's the name of the game. And it's pressure and timing. You disrupt both of those things, and it's a recipe for success against Miami.
I agree with you 1,000%. More of the same from Sunday, please.
Yep.
Can we get more pass rush? Maybe make things look a little bit more exotic on the back end to kind of confuse Tua. But like you said, when the Bills have been successful against the Dolphins, it was because there was a pass rush and Tua was not comfortable. And we have to get something from Greg Rousseau. We just have to. Javon Solomon, we have to get something in the pass rush. I believe Greg Rousseau and Javon Solomon graded in the bottom 10% as far as pass rush win rate against this week against the Jets. So again, it can't just be Joey Bosa. We have to get, some pressure, even if it's coming from up front in the middle. So again, I think this is a game, and we'll get right into score predictions. I think this is a game that the Bills win. I think that it's a garbage time points scored for Miami late in the game. And I have the Bills winning 34-20. And I feel like it's not that close. And hopefully I'm right. I feel like, and this might just be the homer in me saying this, but I feel like when Josh Allen comes off of an injury, the next game, it's like he has this Herculean performance. I just feel like if it's something built deep down within him to prove it to himself or whatever it is, because people get concerned, right? Oh no, Josh has a broken nose. Like, it's going to affect his vision. He's going to be not running because he's going to be protecting, and now he's wearing a visor. I just feel like he's going to have a decent game. He's not going to have to do much, and I feel like they're going to rely heavily on the run game. And maybe this is the time where we actually see some exotic looks for Ray Davis, and he gets a little bit more involved. Because after 2 weeks, I'm not overly excited about what I've seen from Ray Davis. I know it's small sample size, but maybe this is also a Ty Johnson game. I don't know. They seem to sprinkle him in there when they want to throw off opposing teams' defensive schemes. So what's your thoughts? What's your prediction?
I feel like it's the Chicago Bears super fans where it's like, I'll take Ditka versus the 1972 Miami Dolphins, 72-3.
Ditka.
The
Bears.
The Bears. I feel like I'm that outlandish in terms of my prediction for this game. 72-3. But I think if I'm being reasonable, I don't see the Bills scoring less than 30 points. I think this is a game where they put up over 30. I'll go 34 to like 17. I think Tyreek Hill gets one because he's got the speed on our secondary. I just think that he gets loose for a play. But it's, it's like a tank rolling over a bicycle. Like, okay, the bicycle doesn't really get in the way at all or slow down what the Bills are going to be doing. I feel like that's how it goes when Tyreek gets one big play against our secondary. So 34-17, absolute ass kicking on Thursday Night Football at home. That's just it. And honestly, it might be like 42.
I like it. Mitch Trubisky. Oh, we didn't talk about Mitch Trubisky. How do you feel about that? How do we feel about that one pass from Mitch Trubisky? Like, all right, Mitch is in. Just turn around and hand the ball off, and we'll figure out what's wrong with Josh. No, I'm just going to let it rip to Joshua Palmer for 30-something yards. How'd you feel about that? Money Mitch.
I think that it's hilarious that they did that. I also think that Mitch knows that he doesn't get many opportunities in the NFL. So when he gets in the game, he's like, YOLO, I'm chucking this thing. Obviously, it was like a no-risk situation in terms of the outcome of the game was already sealed at that point. So yeah. Mitch is funny. But yeah, I mean, I feel like this is another situation where he can absolutely get into this game. I think that it's a blowout. I think that Mitch gets his opportunity. I really hope that this is a great game for the defensive line. Like, that's who I want to see get the vibes going and get the vibes right. Is God, like, go get like 14 pressures and 4 sacks on Tua in this game. Like, I just want the defensive line to get it rolling or to like steal all the momentum with like back-to-back hits on Tua. You know what I mean? Like, I just want them to have that kind of outing where they're bringing it to Tua instead of the other way around. Like, bring the pressure, get home, make your mark felt. Like you said, Greg needs to show up. Like, he started so hot last season. Was it 4 sacks against Arizona in week 1 and then like really cooled off quite a bit after that. And he's been cold to start the year.
Yeah.
You have Joey Bosa who's killing it on the opposite side of the line. You're getting a lot of one-on-one opportunities. Like, you need to win some one-on-one opportunities. You just got paid, dude. Like, you need to play like it. So I think this needs to be a Greg Rousseau kind of get right opportunity where he needs to make his mark felt.
I feel like you're onto something because I feel like, Groot gets sacks in bunches. Like last year he had a game, I think the opening game against the Cardinals, I think he had 3 sacks. And then there was another game in there where I think he had 2.5 or 3 sacks. So if you want to do that this week, I'm fully on board for that. Let's do it. Let's fire it up because like you said, it's hard to see. And when I watch the film, it's hard to see why he's not getting more opportunities with how teams are going to now be gunning for Joey Bosa. They're going to be chipping him and, trying to double team him and stuff like that, which should alleviate some stress on Greg Rousseau. So we'll see. That's our predictions. If you guys haven't liked the video, please like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. So John, anything else before we get out of here, man?
72-3. Go Bills. Bills.
For John Helmkamp, I'm Dave Myers. This has been First and 5. We'll see you next week. Go Bills.